Okay, I've said before that I think the Epoch Times is a good newspaper source of conservative information for folks, if that's what you're looking for. And today, I'm going to do something I don't usually do. This is from the opinion pages of the Epoch Times, February 14th. It's a letter written in by a reader. And I'm just going to read this because it states the case pretty good. Climate Hypocrisy is the name of the article. It's written by a John Onco from Oregon. And again, it's from the readers, one of the readers on the opinion page of the Epoch Times. Climate Hypocrisy. I'm looking forward to the day when enough honest, influential people will successfully expose the self-serving elitists that are using global cooling or warming or climate change or whatever apocalypse is coming next as a tool to chase financial gain and, I might add, control the population. These doomsday climate scams that take advantage of inconsistent weather patterns that have been around since the 1930s or longer, having only moderate financial success in the past. By updating the projected forecast, control and wealth have been quick to follow. This new generation of fortune tellers has now brainwashed enough gullible but useful idiots who will also push their extreme policies. They only target the wealthiest nations, and regardless of how many crippling concessions they get, it will never be enough. The irony is that they have no problem overlooking the dismal environmental practices of the world's worst offenders. And since selective targeting certainly encourages bad behavior, these countries, which, by the way, are never going green, eagerly but secretly take advantage of our ignorance and dependency by going all in on this mandated green energy racket, which amazingly only they are producing a need for, courtesy of their unrestricted giant diesel power and the fossil fuels that they're importing from well-known hostile nations. This enriches and empowers all these countries, giving them a huge competitive edge over the controllable Western nation. The lust for power and money also consumes the elitists who fuel this green propaganda nonsense. This selfish greed has so far taken top priority over both climate and national security. Sure, we all want to live in a clean environment, so we are easy targets. With a little research, you'll find that these con men, for obvious reasons, use data that is cherry-picked, unreliable, and unrelated to a clean environment to funnel money their way. Common sense suggests that our growing thirst for energy requires the cleanest options available, including oil. This would benefit all of Mother Nature and mankind. The clowns pushing this net zero carbon farce are corrupt politicians, well-funded scientists, radical educators, and lazy journalists, along with their stooges who purposefully exaggerate, destroy, manipulate, and omit crucial information and data, and then masquerade as environmentalists when in reality they are far from it. This intentional deception motivates their tribe to react. Like most of their socialist causes, they trot out their traveling and rebellious professional agitators to shout you down and react disruptively if their ideology, which can never be questioned, is threatened with facts. This censorship and bullying tactics they call democracy are being used on other controversial issues as well to suppress and discourage challenging information on COVID, January 6th, voter fraud, the alleged racism in CRT and DEI programs, plus all the other taboo sideshows that require conformity. But climate change is being marketed as though we, the people, can do the impossible, control the weather, when in reality, the only thing being controlled is we, the people. This is far more achievable and profitable. We are constantly being subjected to catchy phrases like the war on climate, the science is settled, or global boiling, telling us we must act immediately on the exaggerated and overblown effects of climate change or suffer the deadly consequences. The ruse is quite simple. Deceive and or scare enough people into believing the way to address climate change is by changing the climate. Then by putting them in charge, they will begin correcting the terrible climate that's fast approaching with the proper carbon adjustment, saving us and our children from an unadaptable and terrible fate. It will simply take personal sacrifice and, of course, more money. All your money. Then no more severe droughts or wildfires, no more deadly hurricanes or tornadoes, no more severe heat waves or cold snaps will occur. Conveniently for them, the end goal will always be unattainable. And since history is no longer relevant, they can keep advancing this tale where they return us all to the good old days when unpleasant weather was rare. And by simply giving up our prosperity for theirs, they can all live happily ever after in paradise. While we suffer in hell? Ironically, since these same guardian angels who live like royalty refuse to follow their own advice, they're contributing to our impending doom more than any other group of individuals. They make no personal sacrifices to avert Armageddon and remain silent when a real environmental crisis occurs. Because if it's not a source of income, it really doesn't matter to them. This tells you everything you need to know about these phony green activists who prey on the naive and gullible. Inactions speak louder than words. But like most causes, victims are needed to create wealth and power. Two things they desperately crave. So defending our nation's borders has also become defending other nations' borders has also become a high priority. And it's profitable as well. It also triggers mass migration and many deaths. However, there is no interest in securing or defending our own borders, which also causes many innocent deaths. Could the lack of response be due to the fact that this policy creates more vulnerable people? And that's what they truly want? They can then embrace and mislead these threatened, needy individuals with selective data and questionable science in order to gain power, money, and political favor. Coincidentally, the source of these trust the science campaigns can usually be traced directly back to those with the most skin in the game. By intentionally exploiting unproven theories and repeating the disinformation above, cover, wealth, power, and fame have all come their way. At fault is what's looking more and more like a state-sponsored press that blatantly sticks its head in the sand and blindly shields these hypocritical socialists who are living the dream while giving us the nightmare. Their needs are many, and they will always come first. And eventually, all but a handful of us will pay that heavy price, including their loyal, brainwashed flock of fanatics. And also worth noting is that changing climates and evolution usually go hand in hand, since the vast majority of life is quite capable of adapting. especially so for those surrounded by money. Okay, a pretty good article lays out the scam in the green agenda, which I've been telling you is a complete and total fraud for, well, since they started it 7 or 8 years ago now. They have no intention of turning the planet green. They just want to control energy because that's how you control the population is you take cheap energy away from them. When energy is cheap, the people can do everything. They can experiment, they can work, they can do more, they can expand, they can play with new technologies. When energy is expensive, they can't even get to work 5 days a week for the cost of gasoline. They don't want to make the planet green. They want to control you, take away cheap energy so that America can be brought down because it's the cheap energy in this country that keeps us leading the planet. So this is about controlling the population and controlling energy, and ultimately, when the government takes over energy, it rations it only to its political supporters and denies it to its political and philosophical opposition. So green is a fraud. This article lays it out pretty good. And, if there's an environmental issue to be taken up, it's on the states. Environment isn't in the Constitution as a federal issue. It's not there. And there's a damn good reason why it's not there. It's because every single state has different environmental issues. And the Fed shouldn't be setting the agenda because it doesn't know what the issue is in any of the states. It's just imposing its own agenda in order to control the American people.